And these are the scenes from Libyan state television that the leadership wants you to see. Large crowds in Tripoli showing strong support for Gaddafi. Meanwhile, thousands of people gathered to honor those killed. They chant, "Gaddafi is the enemy of God." The people of Libya praying for their dead. Scenes repeated across the country, a nation in shock.
Our psychological state is totally destroyed. What compensation can we get that can help us cope with the loss of our children? The total destruction of our city. Our children cannot be paid for. Their lives in cold blood will not be forgiven.
On the streets of Tripoli, rare video shows people chanting the same lines pro-democracy demonstrators used in Egypt and Tunisia. Many say Gaddafi's time is up. But the crackdown by the government here has been brutal, and for now shows no sign of letting up. Stephanie Decker, Al Jazeera.
Well, as we just heard, the United Nations Security Council will be holding a special session on Libya on Tuesday. Scott Heidler is there.
The United Nations Security Council has issued a statement saying that they will hold a closed-door meeting at 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning to discuss Libya. This is something that was called for by the UN, the Libyan mission to the United Nations earlier in the day. They have gotten their wish. There will be a special session on Tuesday morning. Now, earlier in the day, Monday morning, the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon issued a statement mentioning a conversation he had with Muammar Gaddafi. 8-9 hours later, as the stories and the details flowed out of what was happening in Libya, a much stronger worded statement came out where he actually said the Secretary General, this was from his spokesman, is outraged at press reports that the Libyan authorities have been firing at demonstrators from warplanes and helicopters. It went on to say such attacks against civilians, if confirmed, would constitute a serious violation of international humanitarian law. This coming from the Secretary General's spokesman. Now, when it comes to that humanitarian law, what's going to happen? That will hopefully come out in this statement that we're expecting from the Security Council after they meet on Tuesday morning. Most likely the president will come out and read a couple paragraph statement that the Security Council members were able to come together and put forth with their name on when it comes to Libya. But the big question is, will there be something within those couple of paragraphs that says what the next action will be? That's what the Libyan mission here is calling for. So a lot of international community members are calling for what's going to come next and what's the UN's role going to be in Libya.
Most regional governments have stayed quiet on the subject of the violence, but Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Hamad bin Jassim Al Thani says the international community must act now.
Well, I feel a big sympathy for the Libyan people. We don't accept using the force in this way or any way against the people or against any nation from their governments. And we make our declaration in this basis. We think that the international community should also take a stand against what's happening in Libya at the moment. I think Security Council have to play a role, and also we have the condemnation is not enough because we see the international community taking serious action against less problems. I think the 5 permanent members and the others, they should take the responsibilities and do something to help the civilian people in Libya, because what happened is not accepted by any way or any reason. We are in Qatar, feel that the Arab League has to take something. I'm glad that there will be a meeting tomorrow held in Egypt for that reason, and that also will be part of the pressure in the Libyan governments that they have to stop using munitions and guns and machine guns and airplanes against the people.
The Undersecretary for Libya's Foreign Ministry has told Al Jazeera that reports of foreign mercenaries and air bombardment in Libya are false.
The reason I'm calling is to seek the truth and only the truth. I want to stress 2 facts to the viewers in the Arab world, and especially to Libyans inside and outside Libya. I accept personal and full responsibility, and I'm ready not only to resign from my post, but also set myself alight in the Green Square if it's confirmed that there are mercenaries from African states coming by plane to Libya, and if it was confirmed and there was aerial bombardment. I asked the British ambassador to be a witness and to bring a media crew tomorrow morning to tour all Tripoli to inspect any aftermath of aerial bombardment or indiscriminate bombardment, and if so, I will bear full responsibility. Tomorrow you will see live pictures from foreign media outlets from around Tripoli, and crews will go to Benghazi. In Benghazi the situation is different from Tripoli. There are groups of people, like Brother Saif al-Islam said, groups that have demands, and we understand them. And I personally don't see any problem with peaceful demonstrations and calling for any demands. But when people attack bases and seize weapons to terrify the civilians and our soldiers, that's a different matter. Benghazi didn't witness massacres by the state. They were mistakes by policemen, and I personally, as a citizen and not as a public servant, hold policemen who used excessive force to account. And they tried to justify it as self-defense when they, the protesters, attacked and tried to burn police stations. But I support an investigation that Saif al-Islam announced today and asked a judge to head a committee. The Libyan judiciary is honest and judges in Libya are independent, and as evidence of this, they don't always get along with the executive authorities, and they are educated and hold high degrees from abroad. I beg all to listen to the voice of the brain, to keep the development going, maintain the country and the lives of the people. Who will win if AlJazeera did this act? Will Qatar or the employees of AlJazeera win? Telecommunications are not cut in Libya, and now I'm talking to you. And secondly, there are maybe a few arrangements by companies and maybe security arrangements, which is their right. And I'm not aware what these arrangements are. Communications are running, and you can call anyone in Libya, and you are talking to me now.
Well, Yusuf Blondel joins me here in Doha. He's a professor of international affairs at Qatar University. Thanks for joining us. You've been following events not just in Libya, but across North Africa for us here on the channel. Let's just begin with this United Nations Security Council closed meeting. Encouraged by the international community actually getting their act together?
I think it's overdue, but it's a very good sign that the Security Council is going to hold a session, given what has been happening in Libya, especially the different reports that mercenaries are bombarding Libyan people, and obviously the defection of so many Libyan diplomats around the world.
Of course, David Owen, a former British foreign minister and a senior diplomat who worked very closely in the Balkans conflict, trying to bring that to a resolution, said that action has to come out of the Security Council meeting. Words will not be enough. So what would you want to see, or what do you think should happen from that meeting?
Two things. The first thing is that there should be a very strong condemnation of what has been happening in Libya, and secondly, impose some kind of a fly zone over the major cities in Libya, and thirdly, even trying to send troops from the Arab League or from the United Nations in order to ensure peace in Libya, because the situation has not been helped by the speech that was made a couple of days ago by Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, in which basically he threatened